I am Razio.
What is up, ladies and gents? Raziel is back. I know it has been a while, and I feel I owe a little bit of an explanation. I've been super slammed with my career lately, which is a career that I love to do. And I kind of also want to take a little break from Final Fantasy XIV for a while and play some other games that I had on my list, on my PC and my PS4. And in playing these games, and I'll tell you what those were in a minute, it really brought up this topic that I'm going to talk about today, which is the video game industry as a whole, and it's due for a crash. And believe me when I say that it's fucking coming, all right? The video game crash is on its way. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but it will crash soon. I'm talking like within the next 5 to 10 years soon. For those of you who are not aware, the gaming industry in the past, it fucking crashed really hard. It happened in 1983 when the video game industry's revenue dropped almost 97%. Why did it crash? Well, the marketplace was flooded with low quality and high turnaround products, but a big one was a lot of companies lost publishing power, publishing control. Shitty and demanding low-paid development teams were under the hand of shareholder-controlled publishing systems, causing, a mass exodus of really good developers from the companies they were a part of, like Atari, for example. And you know what? We're seeing the exact same trend happening today. Good developers are leaving companies. There's an oversaturation of shitty, low-quality, overhyped, over-marketed games. Greedy companies are trying to take advantage of their employees and of their player bases, the people that write their checks. And just as in 1983, we're seeing this trend starting to happen. Well, it's not starting, it's been happening for a while, but it's picking up speed drastically today. Game development companies and especially publishing companies have been steadily, testing the waters and pushing the envelope to see how far they could go, see how much they could get away with, see how much the gaming community would pay out. And in my opinion, this year, 2017, it has finally come to a head. It became apparently evident to me that we hit the fucking wall this year with the release of Destiny 2. I know in my last videos I mentioned I was going to be playing Destiny 2 to give it a shot. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with the Destiny franchise, it was a fucking disaster from day one over 3 years ago. The game was hyped up and marketed out the asshole right from its announcement. It was a loot-based shooter with multiple. They advertised it as multiple huge explorable worlds. That it was an RPG, first-person shooter RPG, and it was coming to us, from the development team that made the Halo games, and so it was going to be people, had very high expectations for this franchise. But we should have seen the red flags. The lead writer and developer, Joe Staten, left the company before the initial Destiny's release because, the Bungie had made a deal with the devil, a.k.a. Activision, on a 10-year plan for the Destiny franchise. And then I won't even get into the huge lawsuit where Activision and Bungie, they faced this lawsuit when they tried to cut out the lead sound designer and composer of the money they owed him. And fun fact, Bungie lost that fucking lawsuit. But let's get back to the point here. Destiny 1 was a failure, and it took the company's live team 3 years to get it to a place where Destiny was a good game, maybe even a great game. By the time Destiny's lifespan was over, it was a great game. It had a lot of fantastic systems, the same random loot rolls. You can find god roll items like you can in games like Diablo, Path of Exile. So there was something for the hardcore people to grind for. There were tons of activities to do in the game. The story was a little better because, the story in Destiny 1 for the most part was non-existent, but they picked it up with the Taken King and added some, some fun backstory and stuff like that. But we've all seen these, disgusting trends that companies do now of putting free-to-play microtransaction models into $60 plus AAA games, and it's getting worse and worse by the game. Companies are deliberately making a shitty game and a cheap game, cut it into pieces so they can nickel and dime everyone until the company's next shitbag release. Excuse me, but Bungie and Activision took it to a whole new fucking level with Destiny 2, and this is where things, like I said earlier, came to a head. They literally re-released Destiny 1 with slightly improved graphics, took out the old planets and replaced them with new, smaller ones, and then literally proceeded to remove 90% of the changes that were made to Destiny 1 over its 3-year lifespan. And many of the systems that were in Destiny 1 right at launch that were great systems that actually made it a good game in the end, so they could resell us the same changes and features and DLC again over Destiny 2's 3-year lifespan. No innovation, no new ideas, just resell old shit. And they call it a sequel. I mean, critics have praised the game, saying it has a great story. Bull fucking shit. Okay? The story in Destiny 2 is linear and boring and generic as fuck. Just, look up some YouTube videos on it. It's getting praised because it has a story, and Destiny 1 released kind of without any story at all. Games should have stories, especially if you're an RPG. Don't praise it for having the most basic of groundwork that any game should have this time around, okay? No. Destiny 2 does not have a great story. It has a story. Because it has a story, it doesn't mean it's a good game. But I've noticed now, players aren't having this shit anymore. Destiny 2's player base dropped from almost 4 million players at release to under 1 million in a 2-month period. And Destiny 2 sold fewer copies than Destiny 1 did at launch. Far, far fewer. I'm going to tell these, fucking shitbag AAA game companies right now, gamers are starting to wake up and see they're getting massively taken advantage of and deliberately lied to. Gamers no longer trust big company reviews, like IGN and all these other places that review games. I mean, look at fucking Metacritic. A company is paid off to give a good review to a game when it gets, they give it an 8.5 or a 9. But the customer reviews, which there are far more of, are like 4s, 3.5, 4.5. Destiny 2 is the perfect example of what has happened to the game industry again for the second time, since 1983. Game companies and developers use the internet as a weapon in their arsenal to get away with practically highway robbery. They can release a shit, buggy, low-quality, cash grab product and just fix it in later patches, but we as gamers can turn and use their own weapon against them. Use the internet to spread how shitty a game actually is. Go to Metacritic and give it an honest review. Go to sites that sell the game, i.e. Best Buy, GameStop, Walmart. Put honest reviews on there. If the game sucks, try to spread the word via the internet as much as you can, warning people not to purchase the game, not to support this company. If this is done and the crash happens, when the crash happens, then companies will go bankrupt, and those that survive will be forced to going back to creating games that sell on their own quality and merits. Game companies should live and die by the quality of their products, just like any other fucking business that exists, any other industry. I mean, just like the late 80s through the early 90s, that's how game companies lived and died. Stop pre-ordering games is another huge part. Stop buying season passes and stop doing this microtransaction bullshit. Don't give your money to loot crates and boxes and cards and all this other fucking crap that these companies shove in there with the intention of, taking every last penny out of your wallet for virtual bullshit that took them no time to create. The reason these companies do it is because they get away with it. The video game industry is the only industry that can get away with bullshit like this because the vast majority of laws to digital content are vague and protect the developer and the publisher. They don't protect the consumer. They're not interested in refunds, and there's so many loopholes, in the laws around electronic content. I mean, look at it this way. What would happen if you had a 2017 model of a car and you went to check out the new 2018 model and you noticed that it was the exact same car as the 2017 model, except they had removed the seatbelts, the airbags, the cruise control, and wanted you to pay extra for all that shit later? First of all, the people in charge would be behind bars. Secondly, you and everyone you know would never buy a car from that manufacturer again. They would go out of business. It's a goddamn fact that a large portion of those calling the shots in the gaming industry belong behind bars. They're criminals. They're corrupt. They're crooked. They're literally finding ways to butt-fuck your corpse in a gutter after raping your wallet. I mean, just look at the fucking patents that Activision has made recently. They literally are patenting ways to scam players into buying more microtransactions. In competitive games, they will match you up with players way better than you and more geared than you, so that when they rape your mouth, a big box will pop up on the screen showing their gear and give you the option to buy the gear. Like, it's fucking ludicrous. These patents are really new information. They're not really new information on the internet right now. The internet's been blowing up over these found patents recently. I mean, I'll link info in the description to the information about these patents, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, there are very few companies and game series that are even worth a cent of your money these days. Very few AAA game companies have put out a game worth a damn in the last decade. A few examples of how a AAA game should be, are games like in these. The first two I'm going to list here are some of the games I was playing over the last few months. Again, are games like The Witcher 3, The Last of Us, Final Fantasy 14, 2.0 and beyond, Metal Gear Solid 5, Zelda, Skyward Sword, and Breath of the Wild, Skyrim. But even, Bethesda's not free of shame when they're just constantly re-releasing different versions of Skyrim, Special Edition, VR Edition, Complete Edition. They just keep re-releasing it, Remastered Edition. It's getting fucking ridiculous. I mean, it's really sad how hard I had to think up some good games made in the last decade that are games that would stand the test of time and continue to be good another 10 years from now. But on the other hand, if I think back to the 90s, before the advent of the internet patching games, when we were still on things like the PlayStation 2, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis, things like that, the basic PC games. When I think back to the 90s, it's so easy to name games that were, I consider, fucking masterpieces, and they were quality games. They stood on their own merits. And they still are good games today. They're fun to play today. In fact, you know what? Here's a list right now. Just top of my head. Alright, now that was just a short list, man. I could fucking go on forever. I mean, I hardly even had to stop to think of games that fall under that category of greatness. Games today are all about microtransactions and the smallest amount of effort a company can put in to make the most profit. The market's oversaturated, like I said, and soured, like I said earlier, with the recent release of such putrid fucking shit garbage of a game like Destiny 2, Need for Speed. They've completely molested the new Lord of the Rings game, the Shadow of War game, with microtransactions. COD, World War II, fucking garbage. It's kind of reached a point of no return now. The industry crash is coming, and gamers are, albeit slowly, starting to wake up. My advice to you guys, anyone watching this video, is to help the cause. Stop supporting big publishers and developers. They just want to fuck you without even a reach around. Companies like EA, Activision, Ubisoft. Don't pre-order games. Never pre-order a game. Believe me, it doesn't help anybody. Never believe what you see in a beta, because we all know now betas are no longer about testing games. It's just another marketing scheme, another way to make sales. When we saw firsthand with all the changes made it to, I haven't played the game, but I saw it. It blew up article that all the changes that were made to Call of Duty World War II during the beta somehow didn't make it to the final release of the game. Jesus Christ, that doesn't even fucking make sense. Stop buying DLCs and expansion packs until reviews come out for them. Never buy into hype. The hype train that everyone talks about. Hype this, hype that. Fuck you. Hype is stupid, all right? Hype via marketing is their greatest tool. These, crooked cocksuckers will do anything to play on your emotions. They try to get you emotionally invested with pretty trailers, commercials, Facebook ads, pre-rendered quote-unquote real game footage. So you fork out money before the game is even close to being released. Be smart with your time and money, and we can speed, this crash along and get to a better place much sooner, where game developers and publishers and companies make games out of passion and a place of refining their art and resulting in a quality game that will stand the test of time. We need to get back to that time period when the people creating our games are the people that are emotionally invested in it themselves, would want to play the game themselves, have a story they want to tell, and can back it up with, great game systems and some halfway decent graphics and good soundtracks. Anyway, guys, my rant's kind of ending here. This has been Raziel. I've already started working on my next video where I'm going to focus a little more on a specific genre, specifically, which is the MMORPG genre. How it's also due for a huge change because, it's going to be affected by the crash as well, and rightfully so, it needs to be. Don't get worried. I'm still bringing you guys Final Fantasy XIV content when I get to playing it again soon, and of course other content as well. I've also received a few emails and comments asking what I thought about BlizzCon 2017 and the announcement of classic WoW servers. I may give my input on that too. If you guys are interested, just let me know in the comments, and I'll make a video about that as well. Or shoot me an email or whatever, and hit me up on Twitter and let me know that something you'd be interested in seeing me make a video about. But again, thanks to everyone for the amazing support over the past months. I'm sorry there's been a content lull. I'm getting back on it now. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and thumbs up if you liked the video. If you didn't, as always, I don't give a fuck. Go fuck yourself. All right, keep it real, guys.